Hey yo, salute to all my subscribers. Special shout out to everybody else passing through. YouTube, what's good? Alright, so I'm back again with another video in the 50 video campaign. 50 secrets it's okay to keep from your partner, but not really. But coming across a few things here that you might be well advised. It might behoove you not to mention these things. And some of these things speak to the psychological position that we often find ourselves in as we transition from an old relationship into a new one. So what's next on the list here is you stalk your ex on social media. The article says, obviously most people check in on their exes sometimes because social media makes it so easy. But psychologists say doing it can disrupt your emotional recovery from the relationship. And if you're already in a new partnership with someone, your current partner will be concerned that you're still hung up on your former relationship, and maybe for good reason. And yeah, it's true. I agree with this article. You definitely might not want to tell your current partner that you're stalking your ex or checking in on your ex on social media. And here's the thing too. This one's difficult because this speaks directly to what I was just saying in the prior video, and I talk about often on this platform. Most people get out of relationships, or relationships break up or end, because someone gets upset about something, or someone gets upset about several occurrences, over a certain period of time in a relationship. And because two people can't figure out how to reconcile those things, or aren't on the same page about how to deal with certain things, the relationship can potentially end. And most relationships that end, and this is very serious, and I'm actually going to take a second with this because this is important. Most relationships end not just as a clean break. Usually what you see is a process. Most people who are in committed relationships, long-term relationships, when those relationships end, it's usually multiple breakups. So you talk to most people who've been in long-term relationships, and it's almost never, oh, we were together for 4 years and then we broke up on December 22nd and that was 2 years ago. Usually it's, oh, we've been together for 4 or 5 years, off and on. We had some issues after year one, broke up for a few weeks or a couple months, started talking again, ended up back together, made it another 6 months or another 2 years. It's usually that process. Usually it's the off again, on again, and that's the last phase of a relationship that's going to, that ends. It's never like a clean break, I go my way, you go yours. Because again, we're creatures of habit. We're creatures of comfort and familiarity. Once you get used to someone, when you remove yourself from that situation because of certain things that anger or upset you, that space in between is usually time where you start to realize the true reality of things, which is the bad things that happen, the bad times in that relationship are bad, but may have been worse in that moment. And so as time goes on with the separation, it's the good things, the good memories, the good moments, I guess, that draw you back. And then you go back and then you realize, oh, there's other shit involved here. And that's a process. And I think that is a healthy process. It's about, truly learning whether or not you're better or worse off together or apart. Because you're not going to learn how you really feel about someone until their separation. And then in that separation, you learn if your feelings are strong enough for you to want to go back and try again. And then once you get back and you've had that time to step away and kind of have the air cleared a little bit, once you go back, then you can see, once you're back in that, why you stepped away. And then you can make a decision from there. For some people, that takes a few rounds. That takes a few tries. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But again, it's about taking that, being in that real clear space, being completely open and honest in all of the relationship dealings, and then taking that inventory and that emotional baggage before you truly decide to move on. Because some people leave relationships too soon. And when they do, there's a critical space there there's a critical time, because what'll happen is most people will get out of their relationship. There's a stage where there's back and forth, off and on, off and on. And then at some point, somebody will realize, well, yo, this is going to last forever. This is always going to be the case. And there are true issues in my relationship that I don't want to go back to. Or there's some other thing that's keeping you from wanting to be in that relationship or being able to be. So you happen to meet someone else, which is in a lot of cases just happenstance. It just is what it is. You don't control that. And then you spark a connection with that person. And then that becomes a lot of people's excuse to finally let go and move on, even though they're not yet ready. But people mistake getting out of a relationship and then however long that space is in between from when they either go back to that prior relationship or move on into another relationship. People mistake that space as them either being lonely or missing their partner that they just broke up with or what have you. But really that space is not there for that. That space is for healing. That space is for reflection. That space is to figure out what it is you really want and get back to who you are and yourself. Because when you're in a relationship, a long-term committed relationship, and you actually care about that relationship, you get away from yourself a little bit because it's hard to keep that balance, because it becomes a mission for you to take care of another person. See about a person's happiness, see about a person's well-being, make sure that that person is cared for, and make sure that you're doing everything that you can do to make that relationship work. And naturally, you do that for long enough, and eventually you just get away from yourself. And so that space in between is for you to get back into yourself. But people confuse that, and they confuse those different emotions, that roller coaster that's finally ending. And people miss those highs, and people forget those lows, and those are the things that make you feel most alive. So you go back. And most people only stop that cycle of going back when something else new presents itself. So then they jump and move forward, but you haven't yet completely reconciled that previous relationship. And that's where you get the issues with people checking in on their exes on social media, continuing conversation or what have you. I think a healthy enough time that passes by, several months or several years, and then that person checks in on you or you check in on them, I don't see any issue with that. If the relationship didn't end for a reason that would cause two people to be enemies, just because you're in a new relationship doesn't mean that you have to no longer communicate with that person. Your partner may see it as an issue, and that's rightfully so, but nobody's wrong in those situations. I do agree, though, with the article on this one. I mean, the verbiage is crazy, the way it's worded. I don't know if everybody could call it stalking, but, I don't know that it's necessarily a good idea to mention to your partner, yo, by the way, I was on Facebook earlier and I decided to look up my ex. I mean, but the problem is, though, if your partner finds out you're doing it and you're keeping it a secret and you're trying to make it seem like it's not a thing, well, why are you doing it? If you felt you couldn't talk about it, then you must know that talking about it and letting me know that you're doing it will cause an issue, because there's an issue there. So it's a tricky one. I don't think anybody's telling their partner that they're talking to their ex or looking up their ex on social media. I think most people do it, and most people just don't speak about it. And it's fine. You know what I'm saying? There's just it's a symptom of something else. And I think if you're doing that, there's a grace period, in my opinion. But after that grace period, if you're doing it, there are certain things that were unresolved. There are certain things that weren't done the way that it should have been done in order for you to properly transition from that relationship. And sometimes, those things are out of your hands, and sometimes they're out of your control. And it just is what it is. But I agree on this one. If you're stalking your ex on social media, you probably don't want to mention it to your current partner, or else you might have another current partner, and then you'll be stalking that previous ex on social media. It is what it is, man. I think we just need to become better at transitioning through the different stages and relationships in our lives, and come to a place where before you start to deal with a new person, you have fully cleansed yourself of whatever memories, baggage, good or bad, that controls that connection to that person. And that's it. It's what it is. Hey, y'all, don't pretend to know everything. I just know what I know. Let me know what y'all think about this one, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.